lesson starts. Again, thanks everyone for joining us. Kid show. All right, here we go. Project number 12. Let's go into this and let's view the project. And I can't do that from here, so I have to go into classwork. And give me 1 second. I do need to take a phone call. It's an important one. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm just finding out some information really quick, and then I'm going to get right back to you. But I'm going to leave Project 12 open right here so you guys can take a look at that. And I'll be right back with you. Don't you love on hold music? Do you know that there's an entire industry of people that make on hold music? It's the best. Also, why I am on hold, just to let everyone know, this week coming up was supposed to be a rain out Monday through Friday, but now as you look through the weather, and I know I'm not the weatherman, I'm no Sam Champion, I'm no Al Roker, but I'm not Mr. G. Okay, so the weather was supposed to be a real washout. So the point being is that now it's not going to be as big of a washout. It's going to be a little harder to stay focused and get work done. But here we go. Project number 12, creating your online presence via LinkedIn and YouTube. So here's the deal. As I mentioned prior to going into this, our end of the year project usually was to take our tracks, to master them, to build them on a CD, and to create artwork, and then walk out of the door with a digital resume of what you did over the course of that year in audio production. And it kind of highlighted all of the skills that we learned along the way: archiving, file management, all your mixing projects that you did, even some of your videos, and then of course the mastering and the authoring using ID3 tags, and the burning. Again, CDs are kind of outdated, but you get the concept, right? It was kind of a culmination of all the skill sets that you guys were working on. Uh, so since we really can't do that process, we started this year. We were going to kind of go the way of digital online resumes anyway, and that's kind of what this is. So let's walk through this very slowly, just to show you what I'm looking for, so you kind of have an understanding of the scope of the project. All right, it's really just this: you're going to create a LinkedIn account, you're going to create a YouTube page if you don't have one already, and if you do have one, you have to make sure it's only for you as an engineer. All right. It's not about you and your Twitch account. It's not about you doing dumb videos with your buddies in the backyard. This is a personal, professional resume account, an online resume reel where people can be directed to it and listen to some of your work. And the reason why we use YouTube is it's free, right? It doesn't cost anything to host data. And again, thinking of it in terms of archiving, you really can store a lot of your stuff on YouTube. YouTube lets you upload enormous amounts of information. So if you want to make a archive of all the stuff you've done, YouTube's a great place to do it, believe it or not, because they give you unlimited space, and you don't have to post everything. You can keep things private, unposted, and literally just in your account. And yes, it does get compressed, and yes, it does lose value because of the quality of the audio. So it's not a perfect system, but it definitely does give you free, unlimited online space to store your information. All right, anyway. So we're going to start off this by creating a LinkedIn account. Now, you may have one, I don't know. But if you have one, it can't be one that's just, a rinky dink account. We have to now bolster this account with all the brand new information of what you kind of learned this year. All right. There's no better time to start creating online professional accounts than now, because we are not going into a job anymore and interviewing. And I don't know when that ever is going to happen again. We have to have a page that represents us as professionals without anyone ever meeting us. And then, once that gets passed and the first round is done, then you might actually get online and have a Google Meet or a Zoom meeting with somebody. But we first have to show who we are and what we know through this online resume service. And LinkedIn is, the biggest one out there right now. And it's free to have. There's no cost to this. So there hasn't been a better time to create your own online professional resume to help generate exposure to your presence in the audio production industry. Having an online resume can help jobs and professionals get an idea of your work and experience using the internet. In this project, you will be creating and uploading your LinkedIn account. Updating, not uploading. So if you already created one, you're going to update it and make it more professional. If you haven't made one, you're going to start one from scratch. It's not very difficult. Just need an email address. That's it. First, you will need to set up an account if you haven't done so already. New information must be added to your resume that reflects your time and experience in audio production. Whether you're just starting out or having completed several projects to your credit, this online service can connect you with the networking services that serve millions of professionals in the industry. I'm on LinkedIn. I've gotten jobs through LinkedIn. I have gotten jobs, freelance online jobs through LinkedIn. Below, start to write down all the credits you may have. All right, so you're going to use this top sheet and just type in some information. Include information about your education and your work experience and any other projects you have worked on professionally or even as a hobby or special interest project. So if you made up your own, rap song, people are going to want to hear that you made the beat, you wrote the lyrics, you recorded it, or you got it recorded somewhere. They want to see the scope of your reach. Now, if it was me, I wouldn't turn this into, this is my SoundCloud page. That's not what this is. You include a track of stuff that you've done, but you also should include the stuff that we did at school. And if, again, you had it backed up on a flash drive, you should have it right now at your house. And again, at this point, I'm pretty sure all the people that have been doing the work have access to a laptop, some way, shape, or form, maybe a Chromebook. So a flash drive will be fine. Or you can quickly take a flash drive, plug it into a laptop, upload it to a Google Drive, and then have it on your phone. I mean, everything's accessible. Everything's interchangeable. And I know like even Christian has a flash drive that can convert into a lightning connector or some sort of Android connector, and then he can upload stuff with his flash drive connected directly to his phone. They make that stuff. It's very cheap. Today's technology is awesome. So again, you're going to write down some credits you may have. I would start with the fact that you were in audio production for this amount of time over the course of years or whatever it is. And then be sure that all your information is accurate with dates and information. And once you have that done, of course, you're going to build it into your account. Of course, give it a picture. Make sure your account name is your professional account name, which should include your real name. We're not using this as your SoundCloud account where you can put, Little DZ. That's fine, but you're not Little DZ on LinkedIn. You're a professional on LinkedIn. You are the real name on LinkedIn. Unless you have an established producer name, I would use your real name until you actually have some real industry credits on there. And then when people get to know you as that, then you can convert over. But until then, use your name, please. Use your real name.
I have a question.
Ooh, hello, Eleanor.
Hi. So I'm not gonna go into this industry for college. Is it okay if I like do a different industry for it?
Absolutely. So I was going to recommend that if you're not going to end up being a producer, right? If you're going to be an artist, if you're going to be a actor, if you're going to be something in the industry, you can basically mold it to what makes more sense for you moving forward. So if you're going to be a singer in a year or two, then yeah, you probably should have some of the experience of working with digital equipment because you never know when you can go back to it and use it. So you should have maybe a little bit of the experience that you've gotten from the class on there. But if you want it to be directed more towards, if you see on my sheet here, sound and voice resources and links, that's a great network group to be in, because then you can do voice recordings. You can do cartoonist voiceovers. You know, those are things that if you're, even if you're going close to that industry, you should have this wide reach so you can get jobs in a lot of different places. Again, you never know where the path is going to end. Um, so use what you know, and have on there as much information as possible. And Eleanor, even if you put in there that you went and studied audio production, it doesn't hurt. It definitely doesn't hurt to put on that you did audio production for 2 years and got a Wilson Tech certificate over the 2 years, and then of course got the technical endorsement exam. Why not? I mean, there's no detriment to whatever way you're going to have that on there. It makes you look like you did a lot more. It's almost like including, you know, special hobbies and interests. Who cares? Who cares if you like to fly fish, you know? But put it on there. I mean, especially if you don't have a lot of experience to date, there's no reason not to make your resume look bigger and better than it could be or than it is. Cool.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, so, you know, put down your information. All that stuff goes right down here in these lines. And then next you will start to connect to audio production networking groups. So here are some examples of these groups that I am part of. The sound and voice resources. So it's not only the actor side, but it's also the tech side. Music and audio professionals, anyone that sings or produces or creates. Post sound mixers, again, I'm in post-production more than I'm in regular production. So to me, that was an important group to be part of. The Audio Engineering Society, which I'm part of, and the AES thing, the convention that we went to back in October. Film, video, and audio professionals, audio production recruiting, Pro Tools users, Logic users, any DAW that you may use, whether it be Presonus or whether you're using FL Studio or anything like that. All those groups are out there on LinkedIn. And then you create this network, right? Connecting from one to the next and seeing what's going on in that industry and having that kind of shape and mold to what you want to do. And again, let's say you want to go into business. You should still keep an ear out for what's going on in the industries, so you as a business person know what the trends are going to be, what the future holds for the industry, and how people are going to be working and acting moving forward. That's a big deal. So you're going to join some of these groups, and you could find your own. I just gave you some examples. These are not all of them. There's a million of them. So join a few groups and then write the groups that you're going to join below. And of course, I'll see that on your LinkedIn account because you're going to send me your LinkedIn account. You will now share this information with your social media pages. So this is how the network starts. You create a professional platform on LinkedIn, and you are going to be joining LinkedIn. So now promote the fact that you have a professional online resume with all of these types of accounts, things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, WhatsApp, WeChat, Tumblr, Flickr, Pinterest, Google+, even the Avid artist community. If you have an Avid account, which you should at this point, since I asked everyone to make one, you can actually link your LinkedIn page to your Avid account. So you should definitely do that because it actually talks back and forth. So if you, for some reason, got the Pro Tools 101 or Pro Tools 201 training and passed the test, the 110 test, when you post it on Avid, it actually transfer over to LinkedIn and it becomes part of your resume. So there is a lot of interconnectivity with social media applications when you're using it in conjunction with each other. And that's why it's really important. That's how the network begins. That's how the web of your future is going to start. Yourself promoting yourself and sending it out there for everyone to see your accomplishments, your goals, your education, your projects. Everything gets interconnected, creating this nice little web of who you are and what you're going to be. You should connect your LinkedIn page by providing social media pages with the link. This link will be posted. It could be posted in bios. This link could be posted in a shared through the post itself that people can follow in order to connect to you and your experiences. So like I said, you're building this web of you, this Chris Gonzalez web, which just shoots out in all directions and collects as many eyes to your central location as possible. So when it is time, or maybe when it's not time, maybe when you're just lucky and someone stumbled upon you, the job is there for you. You're ready to go. And as you build your experiences over the next few years through the rest of high school and college, this is going to be very necessary. This is the start of it. This is the time. This is the now. There's no more getting around it. Everything is going to be digital. So you're going to connect your LinkedIn page to everything out there. Finally, you're going to set up your a personal YouTube account. Again, what I would do is I would put your name or an appropriate name in here. Again, this is not SoundCloud. You're not Little Driz or Little Drainy or Draino XO. You're not that. All right. This is your professional account where you, as a producer, are going to show off what you've done. And going back to Eleanor's point, even if you don't do this in the future, which, be honest with you, not everyone does, you should still have it out there that one day, you might find yourself at, 22 years old and going, man, I went through college and I'm not going to use any of that either. So what do I do? Maybe you go back and you start doing some of the stuff that you did back in high school. And then you can fall back on that and qualify that as experience and move forward with it. It's just really, really smart. So you're going to set up your personal YouTube account. You're going to use your email to start the account and post video or audio. In this case, most of the time it's audio of your work, and thus creating this resume reel. And then in LinkedIn, you can actually connect people to your YouTube page. So LinkedIn has a media upload, interface, but it's not as good as what YouTube can provide. So then what you would do is you go on YouTube and then you'd connect it back to LinkedIn. Again, it's all interchangeable, creating that web, expanding outward. And you're going to provide examples of your work to people. Having everything digital will allow professionals and potential employers to a place to get to know who you are and what you're capable of doing. All right. So down below here on this top sheet, you're going to provide the links to these pages you created. Please cut and paste the URL to this top sheet. I want you to use the top sheet. I don't mind handwriting above, but if you don't copy and paste the URL in here, if you're going to write it out, now I got to type it in, every dot and dash and capital and lowercase letter possible. And in LinkedIn, it's like zeros and dashes and all sorts of crazy stuff. So all you have to do really is you go up to the top, you're going to just copy this, right? And then in your sheet, you're going to paste it into there. All right. So it's not that hard. And then that actually creates the hyperlink. So when you submit this top sheet back to me, I can just click on the link, it sends me right to your LinkedIn page and to your professional YouTube page. Listen, you can have your own personal YouTube page where you do all your stuff. Like I said, all the fun stuff you might want to do and put on YouTube or already have, fine. But unless you're going to convert that into a professional page, then you're going to need to start another one. Start another account with another email address. And trust me, you have the ability to start any email address you want. Hotmail, Yahoo, AOL, Gmail. You start multiple Gmail accounts. I have about 6 different emails. Not that hard. So make sure that you follow the directions of this top sheet. You're going to start your LinkedIn account. You're going to create your online resume and presence. You're going to create your YouTube page. You can upload some audio and stuff that you did in the class or even at home, but keep it all professional. Keep it with your name. If you want the other personal stuff, fine. Just use something different. Make this as professional looking, as sounding as possible. Now, let's take a look at my LinkedIn page, shall we? Here I am, and I follow a bunch of stuff out there, like we said, the groups before. You could see that my resume right here just connects into people that I would know. Lots of connections here. I don't use it as often as I use other social media, and I also have other services that I go to. But this is, what people see when they get into my account. They see a picture of me. They see the audio recordist. This is old information. This is what I use for my freelance work. It's not really a studio, but anytime I do freelance work, it's under the 3550 studios. My banner, again, all this information here. You could see even back in the day, I used to post student information on here. of course, my resume as an audio production instructor, as a chief engineer, as a freelance studio artist, as a bartender, which you guys know, my education going back to Hofstra and Dowling, and I went to Nassau, and then of course St. Anthony's, where I went to high school. Um, and of course, I have licenses and certifications, right? So of course, I have Apple Pro X certification. I have Pro Tools 12 certification, which is important. And then of course, um, I have skills and endorsements. People have endorsed the stuff that I do for Pro Tools, for Logic, for Photoshop, and more. And then a bunch of these things that I worked on, other interests that I go through. So when we have um, schools connected to us, if Art Institute or your personal college connects to you, um, that's pretty big. And then, of course, you have a network. And this is the big part of this. These are the people, your coworkers, the people that you have done work for or with over the years. It's all here. And so then from there, you can connect to other people from that as well. It just keeps going. The whole point of this is to spread out and get your information in there. So for instance, like this one right here, this is one of my old bosses at the country club I used to work for, Andrew, and then his boss, which was the senior vice president of Troon International. Troon International is a huge corporation, huge. And I actually communicate with DJ all the time. And, there's things that can benefit me from doing that over time. And other things that come up in my feed, Miss Montori is actually in here. Look at that. She uses it professionally. Old college roommate of mine, Jason Delavante. He works in the global IT community, which is awesome. Some comics that I used to know, some people I used to do production work for. Check this out. So this is actually happening, by the way. When you go back to work and you're shooting on the set, now all the crew is, basically in hazmat gear. Doesn't prevent them from recording sound and shooting video and doing green screen work. Obviously, the person on set that's going to be in front of the camera can't be in that because it would look weird. But yeah, I mean, it's just the stuff here that is just priceless information, selecting stuff. You'll see there's not one thing that comes up here that's not really a professional based account. That's the point. This is all about profession. This is not about your Instagram account, although we still, look at this kind of stuff. Hey, it's an ex-student, Mr. Del Piano. But yeah, again, it's just about being in the network. And I can connect to alumni, both into the high school and college levels that we used to be in. Yeah, I don't use it for like quote unquote social media. To me, it's not a social media, although it's qualified as one. It's not one to me. To me, is more of a business networking solution, and it's completely free. And there'd be no reason not to do it. Of course, check it out. There's a little tab up here where you can find jobs. Audio engineer for Spotify, the Dow Jones. So there's jobs here all the time. This is one of the things I do reference when I'm looking for potential freelance jobs. Actually, I saw this one promoted on my website that I go to recently. But just look at all these network connections. So when you go to apply to some of these, they actually just directly put in your LinkedIn account. And so then that should be your resume, right? It should be updated. It should be accurate. You don't have to mail a resume into anybody. It's ridiculous. Today's system is a lot more, I guess, mainstreamed, right? It's the way it should be. We shouldn't be sending resumes in the mail anymore. We should just be able to click on a link, send them our link, and now they know exactly who we are. So this is basically what you're going to be setting up. So for my professional account, quote unquote, personally, I would direct people over to Western Suffolk BOCES, the WSB Audio Pro account, because it's an accurate representation of our class, and the class reflects on me. And I didn't do any of the work that's on our YouTube page. Most of that is student work. So for me, the teaching element, that is what's important to me in my industry. And then, of course, the fact that we can do audio production along with that. Back in the day when I used to do video production, all the stuff that really makes sense. All right. So that is project number 12. Please make sure that you start looking into that. Anybody have any questions about Project 12 before we move on and do our short lesson today? No? Nobody has anything? No. No. Okay. Let's talk about something really quick. We'll intro it today, and then we'll move forward tomorrow and go in depth. So one of the things that we talk about a lot, and what we even covered in our Logic Pro and Pro Tools lessons, is the difference between mono and stereo. One of the steps of mastering that we went over last week is folding down your mix into a mono signal just to listen to how it sounds. A lot of the devices nowadays do have stereo. It used to be a different case. So when the iPod speaker was integrated into the iPod and the iPhone, it was a mono speaker to start. It was one speaker. Now, with technology flying through the roof at an exponential pace, in my phone, I have actually two speakers, one left and one right. So when I hold up my phone horizontally, it actually projects stereo sound, but it's not perfect. I mean, there's an algorithm in there that's not exactly all left information, all right information. But in things like the Alexa speaker, Google Home, they've integrated dual speakers. And most of the things that we are accustomed to today are stereo. I mean, real stereo, not folded down mono to stereo. So there is a couple of different instances where you're going to find that stereo isn't technically true stereo. To understand that concept, we still have to go through a number of different ways on how mixing engineers use their stereo mix to still get the same result across many, many different devices and environments. So we're going to be looking at the idea of mono versus stereo. And this is just a nice little resource that I pulled up. And to give you an idea, again, mono stands or means monophonic. And it describes a way where audio signals are all mixed together and it comes out of one speaker. And tactically speaking, it could be two speakers playing the same exact mono signal. A mono signal playing in the left, a mono signal playing in the right. It's the exact same information. There's no difference in the speakers. We know that as mono mixing. When we did the Zoom, we did the opposite end. Instead of playback, we did recording, where we recorded a mono signal like this microphone onto both channels 1 and 2, combined the two, and then that one signal played out of both the left and right ear simultaneously. So that was still considered monophonic, even though it was playing in two separate speakers. So I grabbed a really quick image here of a mono signal, right? The signal is one, it's not left and right, and it's playing to both of these speakers. Okay. Then the difference between mono and stereo looks like this, where signal one, which is the left side, plays to the left speaker. No crossover, no crosstalk, no nothing. Signal number two is the right hand signal, and that plays through the right speaker. So there's defined signals, one in the left, one in the right. That is stereo sound. No mixing together. Define left and define right. Again, the top means there was one signal and it played out of both ears. And so that is what our Zoom did. We took one signal, our microphone, we were able to mix it together with the second channel. And since the second channel had nothing on it, 2 plus 0 is still 2. What we were left with is the microphone signal. And then we shot that microphone signal out to both our left and right ears, right? In example number 2, the one at the bottom, if we were to record a Zoom like this, when we spoke into the microphone, we'd only hear it in our left ear. Because there was nothing in on channel 2 or signal 2, there'd be nothing coming out of speaker from signal 2. And that was the biggest difference between mono and stereo to start. So to get a good idea of the basics of stereo sound, you need to understand mono versus stereo. So over in the software, right, what do? We said we folded it down to mono because it gave us a representation of when these two signals get mixed together and form one signal, that still sound good. Is there still some value in our signal? So let's take a look-ski really quick of what we did, just to, again, represent it. Over here in our project, we dropped in several stereo tracks, several stereo files. During mastering, we use stereo. When we mix these together, or when we have them individually, they all feed the stereo output. I was going to say the master track, but it's not the master track. Now, that master track is also going to be a stereo file, defined left and right. We're still talking about this image, guys. So this whole project right now is feeding off of this concept, right? And I can prove it. Right now, I'm speaking into my microphone, and it's only happening in the left-hand side of this track. Only going to go in the left-hand side, and it's only going to be playing back at the left-hand side. Simply put, if I were to turn on my channel, there it is. My signal in this track is only in the left. My output is in the left. We are not mono mixing here. We are not combining it. And all these tracks are stereo. All these tracks work like this. So if I'm only feeding it in signal 1 and not signal 2, it's only going to come out the left-hand side. Now, we can go back in here and change that. And things start to happen if you override what's happening within the software. For instance, this is where you're seeing the input as a stereo signal, but we can change that. If I were to click on this bad boy, I've now created a mono signal. Now, when I hit the inbound button, there we go, you're going to see that there's one signal. There's no left, no right. It's a single signal. And that is going out to both ears here at the master track. That's why there's no defined left and right. There's no imbalance of left and right. I'm feeding this one signal to both left and right at the same time. Let's switch that back to stereo. So now we're back to only the left-hand side. This time, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make the master track mono. So I'm going to click on this, and look what happens. It actually splits the stereo output into a left stereo and a right stereo. If you remember back in Pro Tools, when I told you you needed to create a master track, some of you were creating a master track that was mono, and you lost an entire side of information. You lost the ability to monitor the right-hand side. Especially when your tracks are stereo, your master needs to be stereo. If it isn't, then you need to have two mono masters. And I don't recommend that. That gets very confusing. So I'm going to put that back together. And all I'm doing is just clicking on the input, changing it from a stereo track, which is it is right now, to a mono track. I lost all the plugins too. Why? Because all of these plugins are actually stereo, right? When I'm looking at this, I'm actually looking at the stereo EQ, left and right information simultaneously. When I'm going into the multipressor, I'm actually looking at left and right information simultaneously. When I'm going into the additive limiter and the ability to add volume to this, I'm actually looking at it in terms of stereo. And on the way out of the EQ, again, looking at it in terms of stereo. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. Be aware, though, that when I added this, see, it says stereo. If I did dual mono, then I could probably split this out. And we'll do it again, mono. And then we'd have to add it to the second one. Jeez. That's not fun. Seems silly. But the point is, when you're creating tracks, when you're dealing with handling mono and stereo or all mono tracks, you have to be sure that what you're doing in your software makes sense. If you have only stuff coming out of the left-hand side, maybe your track's not set up right. Maybe your interface isn't right. Maybe it's not folding down like a Zoom isn't in mono mix mode. If you're in stereo, this is what you're doing. So if you break this rule, things won't sound the way they were supposed to. Now, some people actually do this on purpose. They break the rule on purpose to get a certain result. Now, you better know what you're doing to break that rule. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself like I am here, only having stuff coming out of the left-hand side of my track. Another way to show this, to kind of identify this, I'm going to come down here really quick, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop a recording down. I'm a mono recording into a stereo track. And what happens when we do that? Again, we're only going to get one side of the stereo field, and you're going to see in your project only the one side of that stereo field being recorded. So there it is. The top is the left, the bottom is the right. When I play this back, it's only going to let me show and see the left-hand side. And you're going to see in your project only the one side of that stereo field. Beautiful recording. Beautiful. And that only came out of the left-hand side of my speaker. I recorded a mono signal onto a stereo track, and the result was only left ear information, left speaker, signal 1. If I wanted to fix this, I could do that. Let's delete that for a moment. Let's go back over here. On this track, let's turn it into mono. Now when I record, oh boy. Now when I record information into the track, this is the result I get. Not necessarily the best, but it is a mono recording onto a mono track. When I play it back, it will play back in both ears because we're doing a mono mix. Now when I record information into the track, this is the result I get. So knowing the difference between mono and stereo is extremely important. If you are not paying attention carefully as you're working with tracks and working in the master track and getting things set up correctly, you could find yourself in a very bad place towards the end of your project with a result that you didn't want. Let's go back over to our page here. So mono, as we said, describes a mono system, could have multiple speakers, but each individual speaker is its own channel. Whereas in a stereo, we have two true stereophonic sounds. So monophonic versus stereophonic is where mono and stereo come from, by the way. And the fact that you have defined left and right information. So look at this. This is showing you the temperature or loudness during a mono signal, right? So the loudness exists somewhere dead center in the room, right? So if I'm an engineer, I'm going to hear it perfectly right there in the middle. But stereo, two-channel stereo, is a little different. The hot spots are over there defined by the left and the right information. So in a two-channel, again, if I only pan off to the left or I only pan off to the right, you can identify certain areas. Basically, you're creating that stereo field. The problem is the middle now is not as loud. Look at that. So the middle here was super loud of the room. Remember, this is gauging the temperature and loudness in the room. In this one, the temperature and loudness is closer to the speakers pulled off to the left and right of the room. So some people like to work with a three-channel, right? A left, a right, and a center, or LCR. Great game, especially when you're around people that have some cash. There are some cheats that you could work on, but basically you're going to get a left, a right, and a center to blend in all of those things. Now, when you do something like that, if you have a three-channel, you're going to have to make sure that when you bounce this down or fold it down, that it doesn't interrupt or change back to a mono or a very wide stereo signal. So we use this, and it actually says right here, yeah, we use LCR in drama theaters and churches who require both a mono speech reinforcement for people speaking and, of course, music out on the left and the right. We actually use left, center, right, or LCR over at the James E. Allen Theater. Unfortunately, that didn't happen this year. It's a great experience for the people that volunteer and go. We actually went over and did some of that hookup and tested things out. But with the new board, it allowed us to have music and anything else, sound effects or any other supporting sound, way out on the left and right of the stage, and then allowed the voice actors to be closer to the center of the stage. We actually did a left, right, center setup for that, which was awesome. There's this thing called stingers. This might be getting into a little much for you, but right now, let's just take a look at it really quick. So by the way, there's a really cool rollover thing up here. So we'll go into the single center cluster, which means there's multiple speakers playing all center channel. There's left and right, as you know, right? So this is your left and right channel. This is your left only. And then they started adding in this little idea of a stinger. So a stinger is like a little additional sound support. So even when the left channel is over there, uh, there's still a little bit of right information, which doesn't allow a full pan off to the left and right. And there's left channel with the right stinger. That's a left with a left, that's a left with a right, and these are both channels with stingers. So it does fill the room a little more. So you could see the small little speakers that pop up here in the front. So this is the difference between, let's say, near field and far field monitoring, which we will get into later this week. Um, so our stingers are really like positional, smaller speakers that can help balance the equation when we're in a true stereo setting. And then they make recommendations down here for, um, sound systems and how they should do things and how you should set up. So just some cool stuff to look at. Here's the big deal, and this is really what I want to show you. Stereophonic sound, and unfortunately, this links you to Wikipedia, which I hate, but it's just, an easy resource really fast. So you can see over here this image, very informational. I like this because we do use something like this um, in class when we are doing our lessons. So the fact that you have a left and a right ear allows you to pick up information on things in your environment. So, for instance, this little bird, right? If you close your eyes and you heard a bird chirping, your brain can actually tell you where it is relative to you. Is it off to the left? Is it traveling left to right? Is it above you? Is it below you? Is it way out in front of you? Is it even behind you? Your ears are really good at determining positional, environmental, or space position because they're stereophonic. The math and science that goes into it is time. So it hits your left ear in this example faster than it hit your right ear. So it would be perceivably off to the left because it hits your left ear first and then your right. Now, that's not something you personally can calculate. Scientific experimentations can show this using math and equations, but you and your brain do a really great job of finding out where things are in this simulation. If the bird was straight out in front of you, your brain could determine it's straight out in front of you and approximately how far away, depending on the loudness of the signal. So this is very informational because if we understand how our brain determines where things are using stereophonics, we can actually simulate that in an environment for producing music, video games, and of course, movies. We can simulate that time. We can make it up simply by understanding this concept. So over here, you'll see stereo simulation, music, bands, games, etc., video, whatever. The time it takes to reach the listener from the source, it took shorter amount of time to the left ear than the right ear. So we have a simulation like that at school that we were using. And like I said, unfortunately, we're not at school. But that's why stereophonics are very, very important. Let's take a look at monaural sound, right? A very simple concept. It's straight up mono. It's centered. There's a little bit of thing about, I don't really trust anything on Wikipedia, to be honest with you, which is kind of crazy, but it is. Here's another thing. So we're creating stereo sound. I'll go back to stereophonic for a minute. We're creating stereo sound naturally here, right? With the bird flying. How do we simulate this in an environment where we are putting on headphones and having people experience the stereophonic nature, um, but we're really not? I mean, it really isn't there. So what we came up with is a concept of creating a closed environment using math and science, using microphones and technology and headphones to create what we call dummy head recording, which is binaural recording. So binaural is almost the artificial version of stereophonic. So let's look how this works. So yeah, they actually, build a human head relatively close to the size of a human. They put two microphones in each of this dummy head. This is by Neumann, by the way. And they are able to now place this in a space and be able to use math and science to recreate the sound using 2 microphones that would sound exactly like it would if you were naturally there. And then they use that information to then build things into gaming systems, into music and production, and then of course into movies, which is the big deal. There it was. I'm trying to find where I put it. So again, it's just using the idea of time, distance, positioning. If you're the dummy head, obviously you're going to hear a signal coming out of left and right. If it came out of the left and it hit your left ear faster than it hit the right ear, you would notice that the signal or the positioning of the sound source is off to the left. Again, it's using just basic things that we take for granted. So take a look at this. This is a really interesting chart. So up and down, we actually can determine whether the signal is coming from above us or below us. Left and right across the spectrum, which is a diagonal vector, that's really interesting. And then, of course, in front of or back of as well. Your brain does this all in real time. But we want to recreate that. We want to reposition ourselves to be able to take what would be naturally experienced and offer it into an artificial virtual space. And that is what we're going to go into for the rest of the week today, is talking about how the software allows us to do this, allows us to get to that monophonic, stereophonic, monaural, binaural, and these ways that you can manipulate sound and recreate certain things that wouldn't naturally be occurring or couldn't naturally occur. So there's, like I said, we're going to get a little bit into the math and science, but nothing crazy. We're going to basically show you how that works in the software. So when you get into Pro Tools, when you get into Logic, you'll understand not only how to manipulate mono versus stereo, but you're able to then apply that to the software. And then we can actually take it to 5.1, which I wanted to cover this year as well. So that's what we're going to be doing throughout the rest of the week. Anybody have any questions about Project 12, math central tendency, or anything about mono versus stereo today? Or anything else? Anything else you want to ask me? Yes. The answer is yes. I am awesome. Thank you for that text. Appreciate that. All right. Well, listen, if you haven't completed project number 11, if you didn't do the test from last week, please do that. Go back through your grade book. Start doing all the work. You do not want to be in the last week of June or middle of June and realize you're failing for the fourth quarter because you just didn't bother to take the time to do anything, because you didn't think anything bad was going to happen. And where did that get all of us? Nothing bad is going to happen. And then the world shut down. All right, everyone have a great day. Oh, yeah, well, I got quick. Shoot it. Shake it up. What do you got?
I sent everything to Mr. Lapedes. He never sent me, like, he didn't responded to me, like, to tell me how.
He said, I talked to him last week. He said he was communicating with you via email. So just check your email.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, guys, everyone enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see everyone back here tomorrow, 10 o'clock. We out. Boop.